So they took advantage of that opportunity. The second item is Law Department 2, $13,000. A transfer, oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to do the executive session first. Let me just deal with this Law Department item while we have the Law Department people here. Does anyone on the committee have any question about this transfer?
I just, may I?
Sure.
I believe, well, this has been approved by
Right.
the Law Committee, but it's my understanding that in order to make this effective, the RTM will have to approve the $200,000 that we approved last month within the BET. So I just wanted to make that comment.
No, I don't think it's accurate. Unless
This is just
Really?
moving money from,
moving money from one account to the other. There's
Right.
money in 100s to move to the 200s. So we could do that.
Thank you.
okay.
The only piece of it, Wayne, if I can, the only piece of it is that when you came to us about the additional $200,000, there are a few things that were involved in that, as I recall, and my recollections may be wrong, but, and in which event, just correct me if I'm wrong, but the things that you had indicated was that you'd had a number of absences and the like, that had caused you to have to pick up some additional costs because of that. And then you indicated that because of the citing council litigation and the like, that you had quite a bit of additional expense on outside counsel. Because the line item that you're that you're indicating you have the room to take $13,000 from is that very item. Is 51,400, which is professional and other special, which I understand to be the fees of outside attorneys that we budgeted in the current year, $915,000.
It could also come from,
I'm just looking at the blue sheet. It seems to be coming from 51,400. And 51,400 is professional and other special services dash attorneys, 915,000, which I've always taken to be the line item that we use for outside counsel in the event of conflicts or special skills and the like.
it is. We also would have the ability to take it from outside experts, which has about $183,000 left.
Okay. All right. I mean, there's a small inconsistency with that. I mean, I leave you manage your own dollars. You've always done that well. I don't have an objection to it. There was just a small inconsistency that I need additional money, and then 2 weeks later you're telling us I got extra money there.
There's no extra money in that.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Wayne.
all right. So if we don't have any other questions on that item,
I would move that item if that's what you want to do at this
Yeah,
point,
we
Mr.
might as
Chairman.
well do it.
I would move that item.
And I will second as a routine item.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, 400. All right, so now we need to go into executive session. I skipped over that
I
to
move
talk about a piece of pending litigation.
I move that we go into executive session.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so are we ready on the
Yes.
television? Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. We now have a set of items which are traditional end-of-the-year carry-forward requests. Let me just ask the committee, do you wish to discuss any of these, or can we just dispose of them?
Just a minor. I just think that under the capital carry forward, Eastern Civic Center design, that had conditions that related to the environmental, and as,
Still
long as that,
conditions.
carries over,
Yeah.
no issues with that one. I just
Yeah.
wanted to reconfirm that.
The condition may or may not have been met by now, but we don't have to address that here tonight, right?
If it had been met, they would have spent the money.
No, they'd have come back to tell us how
To
they'd met.
release the condition.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a second condition for a report on community involvement, from my notes. I don't know if I have that correct.
In any case,
One of those conditions,
This is the Eastern Greenwich Civic Center.
yeah. So you're not asking us to release the condition, you're just asking us to carry the money forward.
Right.
You'll be back for that other kind of fun another time, right? So then,
Can I,
yes, you
it's
may.
always hard for me to jump in, I'm not within eyesight. I don't have an issue with these 6 projects, but there is one additional project on the capital appropriation statement that's in highways, a 2017 project for the ADA sidewalk inventory and improvement, that nothing's been spent or encumbered, and I didn't know if that needed to be added to the list.
No, because we have money that's in the process of being encumbered for that.
Before the year end, you're saying?
Okay. Well, then maybe I can have one motion to approve these carry forwards as routine items.
Oh, I'll
make
do
that
that.
motion.
I'll do it. You want it from someone else?
Ladies first.
I'll do that.
And I'll
make
second
one.
that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 400. New business. Did we lose Lyle? We had Lyle Gibbons. Okay. Lyle spent so much time in the state legislature that she figured we'd be here till tomorrow morning getting through these items. Aha. I just said you'd spent so much time in the state legislature that you assumed that we couldn't possibly get to you this quickly.
No, I didn't. I just emailed my husband. I said, you might have to have dinner by yourself.
Well, that depends entirely on you now. Okay. Who's doing the speaking? All right. So you might want to be clear about what the purpose
What we're
of
doing.
we're doing.
Well, we
tonight.
were just discussing what the purpose was. We're not quite sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two.
Did I give it all to you?
Well, I have two.
The Harbor Management Commission, the budget for the Harbor Management Commission comes under Resolution 10 of the town budget, which means we adopt our own budget. It goes to the Board of Selectmen for review and then to the BET for review and adoption or any changes that you want to make. And it was brought up to us this spring. In fact, it's been an ongoing saga for the past 6 months that a couple of commissioners and some of their outside friends felt that we should be part of the bigger budget document, that our document was not transparent. It did not fall under town protocol. It was not properly done. So at the end of what I just passed out to you, we have a review from Amina Ahmad stating that what we do is absolutely accurate and correct. It was Bob Brady who spoke to us first at the RTM Legislative and Rules Committee, and he did agree that what we were doing so far was proper, but he felt that we should still be part of the larger budget document because this process had been set up in 2009 by the Board of Selectmen. It's now 2017, and we need to conform with everybody else for transparency. I spoke at that time, and I also spoke at the budget meeting for the RTM, saying that the reason you have these resolutions is when departments have very minor amounts compared to the overall budget, that it is easier both in time, energy, and transparency really to keep them as a separate resolution than to put them into the whole budget document. As it turned out, the RTM budget to delete, or the proposal before the RTM to delete Resolution 10 failed. I want to say it was 64 to 94 to 6 or something like that.
Substantial margin.
But Leslie suggested that we come before you and talk to you and see what you all felt, and if we will certainly work with you and do whatever you think is possible. It has been mentioned to us that if we do not deal with this topic is going to come up again, so we thought it would be better if we had some understanding with all of you.
I'd just add, Jim, for clarification, that in past years, the group has come to the BET for the review of their budget, and it's always been approved. And I see here that, I believe this was correct, last year they came in February of 16 to approve the budget, which we see here on this other page, and it's by our object code. And I see now that you presented the 1718. We've always approved it. It looks like they actually have a sufficient appropriated, Roland, is this correct? That we really don't need to appropriate anymore. All we have to do is, I suppose, since we don't need to appropriate anything more, just sort of accept their budget.
And it's Frank Mazza who really has dealt with our budget, and Bruce who
So
works
it's-
a lot with this. Go ahead, Bruce.
If I may, Leslie, and the committee, my name is Bruce Angelillo, and a year ago I succeeded Frank as the chair. We are asked annually to prepare a budget and submit it to the Board of Selectmen in January so that they can present it to you in February. And so for the budget for 2017-18, that budget has been approved. As Lyle indicated, we're looking for your guidance. In some ways, we're agnostic, but one of the things that came up periodically from time to time in the short history of our commission is that people would come and say that we are suggesting that we're perhaps not following the rules, perhaps that we're doing something that's different than what other people do. And that came back last September with an inquiry from Mr. Brady, which was more along the lines of an assertion that we were not in compliance with the rules. So that led to a review with both the finance department and the town administrator to make sure what we were doing was exactly what we're supposed to be doing, because we'll do whatever. We're the child, not the parent. We do what the parent tells us to do. That apparently wasn't satisfactory, so that's why we went to the law department to make sure that their interpretation of Resolution 10 was what we understood it to be. And so we are in compliance with what we're supposed to be doing. Now, the only thing that I would note is with respect to a budget that's about this year it's $40,750. And our spend actually has been, over the last couple of years, has varied to under $20,000 2 years ago, and I think last year was maybe $23,000. It is, in the grand scheme of things, it is what it is in terms of the amount, and I won't proceed to offer a gloss as to whether that's significant or insignificant, but that's the numbers we're working in. One of the things that we would like to try to avoid, if possible, unless that it would be in the BET's interest and the RTM's interest that we do it differently, is that if we were to, as I understand, to comply with sort of the traditional way outside of Resolution 10, I mean, we're a volunteer commission, and to prepare, for example, a capital budget and do all that sort of thing. Right now, we're running all in. We're running about $30 a day in administrative support. That's what our run rate is for the year. That's how we operate things. We run basically $30 a day, about $10,000 a year. We respectfully, we really don't think that would make a lot of sense to build in significant overhead in terms of doing a kind of a full-blown, a more elaborate budget presentation, unless, in your best judgment, you think that that's something that would be in order. Yes.
Again, I'll comment, just because I was at the law committee meetings, which is how, when this first came up. I mean, from what I can see is that this BET has already appropriated, and it's still available because the way this particular fund works, it's appropriated, is almost $76,000. And this is the first time, actually, that the BET has seen this budget, and this budget for this upcoming year is $44,000. So technically, we don't need to appropriate anymore. Is that correct, Roland? And also, just looking at the 100s, 200s, 300s, they're all sort of in the right place. So it's nice to, from my point of view, I don't know, we may have to accept this budget or something, so at least we know. I mean, Roland, what would,
This is a the available budget that they have was approved by the BET in the past.
Right, every
And
year.
if this looks like sufficient funding for what they need to do in the next year or 6 months, whatever, nobody has to do anything.
Right. I think the driving force, Lyle, as she indicated at the beginning, is, and I know that it's not your responsibility to deal with our political issues, but it keeps coming back, the suggestion, in some cases the accusation, that we are somehow not in compliance. And now there seems to be a suggestion that maybe there should be a reconsideration as to whether we should proceed under Resolution 10. So we just wanted to bring to you sort of the state of play. We respectfully would just as soon continue just the way things are that have been established.
Again, I'll speak as the chair of the law committee. I mean, it passed the resolutions. Resolution 10 from the law committee went through the process, was approved by the RTM. So, you're home free through June 30th of 2018. And so there's nothing that I'm aware of that would change that process. But again, I'm speaking from that perspective.
Can I, if you want to respond to Leslie's comment, then.
I think this whole issue is political rather than financial, and I'm not going to go in and point fingers at any one person, but that's what is driving it. And we've had our ups and downs. We're a young committee, and we're the only committee that I know of in town where you join a committee and you don't have a history of what you're supposed to do, an agenda already set up, and you know what was in the past and what's expected of you in the future. We didn't have any past. So we're working on how the present and the future. And I think there were some people who wanted to be on the committee who are not, and there are some people who wanted to stay on the committee who perhaps are not. I think that's part of what's driving it. I'm not sure, but again, we would just as soon clear the air, bring it before you, because you are the financial source, and you tell us what you think we should do.
And,
Go ahead.
I think there are two separate issues that we're being asked to think about tonight, and there wasn't much background information, so some of this is hitting us new. One is the budget. Should it be approved by the BET, and at what time, and what the process should be? And then the second issue is about the resolution and whether that's an appropriate way to handle the funding of it. So I want to, if we can, separate those two conversations. The budget itself, I think, Leslie, you're right. When you look at it, their budget that's approved and in effect still has $75,000 available balance. So in theory, you don't need any additional approvals. I don't think that's a good way to operate. I think it's good to operate on an annual budget cycle. And, if I think about it from a BET's perspective, while I don't know that we necessarily would have any questions each year, I think it would be good for us to review their budget during or have the information to us whether we decide to even discuss it in the February budget cycle. If the selectmen are looking at it in January, it seems it can come to us in February. I'm not opposed to the resolution being in the budget so that the revenues don't have to be separately allocated by the BET, but and the RTM as they go forward. But so for process, even if it's just this information, I still think timing-wise, I would like to see it earlier in the year, in the season, and then we avoid this conversation of they're having a separate type of process. What I don't understand is would I be correct that any capital needs that you have, you just fund out of the revenues you're collecting from mooring fees? I don't know what capital requirements you might even have that meet the town's definition of capital.
Leslie, I think there were two questions there. One was a statement, which I'd like to have a comment, and your second question. The second question is right now, as we proceed to complete and get approved a harbor management plan, we are awaiting the completion of that process, and once we have a plan which sets forth priorities, in the future, we may have some proposed capital projects, but right now, we do not. With respect to your statement about the process for the budget, two comments. First is that our budget for the fiscal year 17-18, we prepared it, presented it to the Board of Selectmen in January, And it's my understanding that in February, it was forwarded to you, and that was part of the, Roland can address this, but our budget was approved earlier in the year, and we are operating under an approved budget right now. One of the things that we did ask, and both with Ben and Roland's help, is that for some reason traditionally, going back to even before our commission was formed, that we had a kind of a rolling, never-ending kind of budget. It was evergreen. And we thought that, and last fall, we thought that created some unnecessary confusion. So for this year and going forward, I believe we are now, within the finance department and the selectman's office, we have a budget that zeroes out at the end of the year. So we're in the way that I understand a conventional budget to work. So I think we're addressing that particular criticism, or question, which I think is exactly right.
Maybe we can get Roland and
Right.
Peter to describe what the current state of play is.
Well, right now, but once the appropriation is there, it stays there until it's used up.
Right.
And we have about probably 40 to 50 other RRR accounts like this. But the police have a lot. The Shellfish is probably the closest. And we could zero it out, but then I guess we would set it back up again. But it's
So, go ahead.
For me, there's a few things that are in a state of flux that make the whole thing kind of awkward. And all of that awkwardness, to my mind, resolves itself at the moment that you finally get to a point that you have an approved plan. And during this interim, while you have no approved plan, you have nothing but complexity. So for right now, we have a charter section 307 that fundamentally makes the controller of that activity the Board of Selectmen. And it authorizes the Board of Selectmen to collect funds and to set policy and the like. Even this resolution tries to create sort of a half-baked thing where it's an authority of the Board of Selectmen, although then it has words acting through the Harbor Management Commission. And yet the Harbor Management Commission, under the statute, comes into existence. They bring it into existence under state section 22A 113K. The thing can come into existence, but you're not allowed to spend any money, and you're not allowed to levy any permit fees. We got into a kind of a half-baked thing that makes me frankly uncomfortable, that we're levying these fees and looking at this circumstance that actually under the statute not allowed to levy permit fees. So we changed the name of it. We called it application processing fees, which to my mind feels kind of too cute by half. I just don't like things that we'll change the name and then we'll do it anyway. We'll have the Harbor Management Commission act and spend money even though it doesn't really have the authority to do it. The authorities in the Board of Selectmen. I think it'd almost be better just to be quiet with all of this and continue operating as you're operating. Get that plan done through the RTM or not through the RTM, have the RTM then reject it. Then we understand also again where we are, but bring all that to fruition. It's just this half-baked thing where we're kind of not fish or fowl. I'm also was a little concerned that the statute had language in it that talked about what the funds are supposed to be used for, and it talked about, I should look at the right section when I do that. It talked about how the funds shall, I view a statute that says that funds shall be used for something as being directive. It says shall be used for the maintenance and improvement of the harbor for the public and for the expenses for personnel and equipment directly related to the function of the commission and the harbor master or the deputy harbor master. Mm-hmm. When we write the resolution, we truncated the language and deleted the language about using it to pay the expenses of the harbor master and just kept it to the maintenance and improvement of the harbor. I mean, when a statute directs what you may use the funds for with a word like shall, I don't know that it seems quite appropriate to me to put into our resolution only half of what the direction was, not the other half. For me, I'd like to step back from all of this and just be quiet for the moment and not deal with authorizations of this or that. Just leave the thing. It's kind of a mess. Leave it where it is. Let these capable people who are working on the committee work their way through it. Where are you right now with the Army Corps of Engineers on approval of the plan? Has it been approved by the Army Corps of Engineers at this point?
Yes,
Pardon?
the approval process, the current state of the approval process is as follows. The Army Corps of Engineers actually does not issue an approval, but they have the opportunity to offer comments. It's been now almost 2 months. They have indicated that they are satisfied with our draft of our plan. Our plan is presently before the DEP.
Right.
And we are at the very last step. There's one item that has been in discussion, which is the precise language as to the deference they must give to recommendations of the Harbor Management Commission. In the 200-page report, we're down to one sentence. As we speak, I communicated with them yesterday morning about that issue, and we're waiting whether we have a final sign-off. The way the ordinance that created us sets the process, once DEEP tells us that they are satisfied with the language of the plan, we must first go to the Board of Selectmen to seek their authorization for us to forward the plan back to DEEP on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. That's the way the statute, the ordinance which creates us reads. We will then present the plan to the Board of Selectmen, who will then give us authorization, unless they've changed their mind, authorization to send it back to DEEP. At that point, we have DEEP reviewing, signing off on a plan that they've already signed off on. They go to their commissioner up in Hartford, and they issue a formal letter. Once that letter is received, then we go to the RTM, and it's the act of the RTM that is the last step that creates.
And I see that. It's exactly Section 22A, 113M. It's exactly, all of what you just said is exactly laid out in the statute.
Right.
But by the way, there's a provision here that suggests a master plan requires that the state draft and make available to the municipalities a proposed model plan. I assume you know that. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, I just hope we haven't spent a whole lot of money with Jeff Stedman and whatnot and not realized the state has a model plan out there.
No, we had that as.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Again, I don't mean to interfere with it. The only other thing that I wanted to touch on was that some years ago was an audit that was done, a limited audit that produced a report in December of 2013 that had identified some issues and things. I assume that in the process of the committee's work, you've been addressing these things and gotten these glitches resolved?
The audit to which you refer preceded the creation of the Harbor Management Commission. So we took notice of that when we got started, but it was with respect to matters that none of us had any institutional history with respect to what happened on some former advisory commission that pre-existed us.
I just want to be sure that the various issues that were haunting the operation, not you, but the operation before, are that wasn't being attentive to it, not carrying it forward. I had the personal experience, and for what it's worth, I have a small boat, a little 18-foot boat, and sent off a check, and when the check hadn't cleared my account 9 months later, I called the first selectman's office and was told by somebody there that there's a lady who comes once a week and collects all the checks and takes them home and in a plastic bag, and they left me a name of the woman, a number who I called 3 times. She never took the call, never returned the call, but when I placed the call 3 times, suddenly my check cleared the account. I mean, I just, that's a very strange way to be handling finances. I didn't raise a fuss about it at the time, but later on when I saw the report that talked about how fees were being collected based upon written applications, but the written applications were then all destroyed, and there's no ability to reconcile fees received against, I mean, I just thought some of these things, that these are old things. These are 2010, 2011. This is all ancient history, all of which precedes your committee and the rest of it. I just want to be sure we're not carrying these problems forward.
None of the items or the anecdotal stories that you're telling with respect to time period prior to the commission, none of that's applicable to the way we've conducted our business.
Good. I have confidence in you. Good. I mean, I just wanted to hear the words that, yep, we've looked at it, and we're not doing any of that bad stuff anymore.
That's not an issue.
Okay.
We, and you'll have to correct me on the language, we have a non-lapsing account, is that right? That our money goes back into the harbor management fund, it doesn't go into the general fund?
Yeah, for the moment, under the statute, those funds are not your funds, they're the town funds. And there's even kind of an interesting issue, to my mind, out there about the moment that your plan is approved, whether or not those funds automatically become yours. Because your authority to levy the permit fees and collect the funds is conditioned on your having an approved plan through the RTM. So the $200,000 or so that was generated prior to having the plan, to my mind, are town funds in an RRR account, and the BET can decide in the fullness of time whether or not it wants to transfer those funds to you. For right now, you're a committee that's operating under the authority of the first selectman and coming periodically for approval of funds, and right now you have an approval of funds.
Mr. Raymer, if I may, I wish to differ.
Okay, so before you differ,
Yeah.
because I see where you're going.
Yeah, these are not our funds, these are town funds.
Yes, exactly.
They will never be our funds.
Yeah.
They're always the town's funds.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't have any issue before us that we need to act on tonight. Okay? So, but I'd like to understand the handout you gave us, because once you give us something, I feel obligated to understand it. So can we just talk about this page for a second? Sure. No, there aren't. So that, where did the numbers come from in the total budget column on the far left? What are those numbers?
Oh, Roland?
Yeah, I'd like to hear
Yeah.
the finance department answer the question.
Okay, this was the total budget that's been approved over the years.
Okay, so going back to 2009?
Yes.
Okay, so if I added up 9, 10, 17, I would get the column called total budget. That doesn't make sense. You've got a total budget number, you've got a total inception number, and you've gotten the difference called available.
Yes, so over the 7 years or whatever, $267,000 has been appropriated by the BET.
Okay,
And through December, there's still 94,000 available, which as of today is 75,000 available. So between December and today, another 20,000 spent.
okay. So through Resolution 10, there's still $90,000 or $70,000 left. Okay. So then this page is the budget for fiscal 18, 17, 18. So you're on the same fiscal year as we're on. You're not on some other year. That's not true of all the people who are in this game, but it's happy to have you on the same year. So this is just you telling us this is how much of that 75,000 you're likely to spend
Next year.
during the fiscal year. In the meantime, you'll also generate some more revenue by collecting the non-fee fees.
My check, yeah,
Okay.
which will clear in less than 9 months this time.
But that money doesn't find its way into the budget unless somewhere along the line, the Board of Selectmen and the BET act under Resolution 10 and add it to the budget. Is that accurate? Okay. So what I don't have, I guess, in here is the revenue, the balance in the revenue account.
It's
You
in
do
the
have it.
packet, it's $200,000 is available right now that hasn't been appropriated.
200 available unappropriated. So in addition to the, on this form, 94,000, there was another 200?
Yes.
Okay. And, okay. So, no, sorry. Try not to break my train of thought here. So in the normal course, which in my mind is where the state never gets its work done, you'll just keep operating this way. You'll spend around $40,000 against 75,000 appropriated and unspent so far. You'll end a year from now with $30,000, and at that point, you probably will ask the Board of Selectmen and the BET to appropriate some more money for you for the next year. And I think one of the things you heard here was we would probably, it would be easier for us to deal with it, let me put it that way, if you made that request when everybody else makes their budgetary request in February, January, February. And the first selectman assembles that budget for the whole town. He could just as well, without forcing you into the town's accounting systems in the way you were talking about earlier, because you already have account numbers and Roland has you signed up for all of that, would be easy enough for the first selectman to add into his budget request for the next year what he thought was going to be spent. And in that case, we would get it to you via Resolution 10, not through the whole town process.
The way we've been doing it since our existence is, Jim, is we've been doing it the way you're suggesting. We do it every January, February.
Right.
On an annual basis.
And that's what I saw here, was
Right.
the last one has a February date on it.
Right.
And if you just keep doing that,
That-
as long as the state doesn't actually resolve your situation, that's going to work for us because we see it all at roughly the same time. And to some extent, it should work for the RTM members who from time to time have said that they don't think it's transparent enough, because it's pretty transparent. So I'm not, speaking for myself, I'm not bothered by any of that. That seems to work okay. And I applaud your willingness to step back from the law and let the process continue to function under Resolution 10 as
Yeah,
it does, because
what-
that's a fully approved
Yeah,
process.
Once their plan, once they finish this process and have an approved plan, I think all these problems will sort themselves out. And until we have an approved plan, just because the statute itself isn't particularly well-written, it's all a little convoluted and confusing. So, I think we should just be patient, and let you do your work and get it done, and then I think the problems will solve themselves.
And then you'll have a new set of
You'll have a new set of problems, right?
Ms. Harkington.
I would just say, it is true, and Mr. Mazza knows this also, that this commission has been coming, not at the budget season meetings, but at one of our monthly budget meetings, normally in February, which is sort of the same cycle. This year, we didn't see them in February, and that is perhaps some of the confusion. But we do appropriate and have always appropriated according to our budget codes, 100s, 200s, 300s. It's just coincidental that this year you have sufficient money already appropriated in the 100s, 200s, and 300s, that you've now presented a budget that works with what's already appropriated. But next year, you will have spent this money, and you will definitely have to come in February for the fiscal 19 budget.
Yeah, okay, so we're good there.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. Mr. Mazza. Mr. Mazza is
See,
my
maybe there's a little
mentor in
confusion
the
here.
town budget process.
I started 3 years ago as chairman of this commission. And at that time, I looked at this budget, which is just a carryover budget from year to year. And we asked to have it changed at that time. And I thought we were going to get it changed by your board, and you didn't. And we asked the second year to change it at the end of the fiscal year, let everything return to the fund, okay, and start over with the new budget. And that's what we've asked again to do this year, and I don't know whether you're going to do that or not. I mean,
Probably not.
Probably, which makes it difficult. I mean, if you look at the budget that got printed out by Finance Department, you know, and you look at the salary count, they had a budget of 56,000. If you start looking at the numbers, none of them make sense. You know, it's ridiculous. We're trying to do it in the simplest, nicest way, the way you do the rest of the town budget, and somehow your board seems to resist that. I don't know why.
Well,
And
what-
that's the reality of it. I mean, we want at the end of the fiscal year, the end of June, return everything that's in that account back to the appropriate fund, the special fund for that. And then we start with this budget we showed you for $44,000, and we have a nice, clean budget. And somehow, we can't seem to get there. And I don't know why.
Right.
It's up to you guys.
I mean, there is just a reporting way to accomplish that if, and I don't know if it makes sense to take that motion up and make that
No.
change now. But from a reporting stand, on July 1, they could just start, their budget column is their new budget, and their available funds are the 75,000 or whatever's remaining of
Well, what
that.
you did was, when it was presented to you, I guess in February, you appropriated the, whatever, the 44,000 effective July 1st. That's what you did.
Right.
Okay. But that would just get added into the money that was left in that fund, which is what we didn't want.
We have not seen this. This is the first time, the first meeting we've seen this. You keep talking, we've never, so that's maybe somewhere the confusion. So this is, we never saw this in February.
Well, let's see if.
It had to be. It was appropriated. I went to the meeting where you acted on it.
Yeah, I don't know that it was this precisely, but you presented.
It was the BET, this
Right.
application was
Right.
presented to your
Let-
board.
2016.
2016.
Oh.
February 2016.
Yeah.
No.
You think we did this in 17? You think we did this in February of 17?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you did. I did.
Because my memory's not as good as it used to be. Let's go back and look
Well-
at the minutes from our February meeting and see if we can,
I think it went
Find
to
that.
you in probably
This is February 15th.
January. Yeah, this is that's not the budget. The budget that we have presented to you is from the 17. We presented to you in, I believe, in December. I think it was December. We didn't, actually, Ben,
No, we didn't.
Ben is the one who presented it.
Uh,
We presented it to the selectmen, okay? And the selectmen presented it to you. And we went through it this year, and it was, the budget that we presented was, I believe, probably in maybe December and maybe acted on in January, but you acted on it.
I'm sure that your memory is right and ours are confused, but that's why we have minutes. So why don't we,
Find the
we
minutes.
don't need to deal with this tonight. Let's go back
Okay.
and look at the minutes and find out if we ever took this up. If what you really want to do, and if the Board of Selectmen would agree, instead of chit-chatting with the chair of the Budget Committee of the BET, I know you are, but it's not hard for us to make these accounts go to zero and, in effect, lapse the money back into the fund. So we can do that. What we need to do is we need to figure out if, in fact, we've already appropriated your 17-18 money. So we need to search the minutes, and, okay? If what you want us to do is make it go back to zero, if you will, except for the money that you want left, obviously, for 17-18, we can do that.
That's what we've been
Lapse,
asking
we
for
can-
2 years.
Lapse it back into the account, right? It'll just make the balance in the account go up a little bit. If that makes it easier for you, I think we're indifferent.
But we still need to know whether or not we've appropriated a budget for them for 17, 18.
Correct.
And if not, then we need to do so.
Then we would need to do so at that point. But while we don't meet again in,
I think you'll find that it was done.
okay, well, let's find out, okay? So if it was done, you would like us to lapse the rest of the money back into the account.
All right. And then we have a budget that you can read and understand.
Optimist.
Really, right?
All right.
Should we
Thank
just
you,
make a motion now to approve this, and if it's already been approved, and to lapse, and then we sort of go?
Sure, you can word a motion like that.
No, I'm old. But you want me to? I mean, so then we don't have to worry about it in July.
Yeah, she's suggesting we approve a contingent amount for the 44,000 in case when we search the records, we find it wasn't approved.
It's not on.
I think it didn't come to the BED because it was less than the available budget. So there was no need to increase any
That's
appropriation.
probably right,
As I say,
yeah. Well, so in that case, what we could do is simply say to you, lapse the difference.
That's the difference, okay.
Well, I'm sorry, but if that appropriation was for the fiscal year 17.
You know, it doesn't matter because it's a revolving fund,
It's
it's
a revolving
forever.
fund. That's what I said before, that's what I've been
That's their
saying.
problem,
I
see.
see.
It doesn't, at least,
It was set up as a triple R.
yeah.
If the revenue is there, it's spent. It used to be the Office of the First Selectman because we had to have control
Yeah.
of who was going to sign off on an expense. Because the only person at that time that was doing expensing was the harbor master, who was not a town agent, who was not a town employee, she was not on a approved
Right.
board set by the RTM to serve.
Right.
So there was no way to release money. So
But-
we
Okay.
all released
But
the
even
money.
even if it's a triple R account, it isn't within the authority of the Harbor Commission. It's within the authority of the First Selectman. It still is an account that's under the authority of the First Selectman.
Triple R accounts never lapse.
Yeah.
Everything is
Whether it lapses or not, it's under the authority of somebody in town government. In this case, it's under the authority of the First Selectman, of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so it seems to me Ms. Tarkin, sorry, wrong Leslie, Ms. Moriarty has looked through the minutes and she can't find any reference to it. My guess is you're not going to find one. For the reason that you gave, there was already enough money, so it never came to us. Everybody seems to be in agreement, lapse the difference back into the account, and that'll clean up the books and records, and there'll be no more problem in your life ever. That's the power of the Budget Committee, you know, we just grant these.
We have to make a motion to that effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, do we need a motion then to
We only need a motion.
lapse the
to-
difference between this budget
Yes,
and the amount,
and the amount that's unspent in
and the amount that's
in the previous amounts that were approved for
Shouldn't the
spending.
motion,
As-
shouldn't we know the dollar figures for the purposes of this?
as
Well,
of,
who knows?
as of June 30th. So if they're spending money between now and June 30th, then, he would deduct it. So I would just make a motion that
When he closes the June 30th books.
That when he closes the 30th books, he lapses any amount that's the differential between
Any
the
amount in
proposed,
excess of-
or the fiscal 18 budget of $44,025 and the amount currently appropriated by the BET. The amount appropriated and available.
I'm sorry, the 44,000 is the anticipated mooring revenue from 2016.
she picked
The
up the
budget
wrong
is the
number.
40,750.
I picked up the number that Leslie gave me.
My mistake.
$40,750.
Yes,
Right.
that's the correct.
That's correct. Okay. So the motion is that when the Finance Department closes the books, it will lapse any amount that had previously been approved under Resolution 10 in excess of the $40,750 as spelled out on this sheet.
I'd second that.
Okay, that was your motion, his second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Your wish is granted.
I'm not sure that was their wish, but that's been granted.
No, that well, it was Mr. Mazza's wish. Okay, thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the May 9th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0.
Do we, does the motion we just made, does that need to go to the BET, the full BET?
It's almost just an administrative, they could request the budget be lapsed, just like any other department. you know.
Well, my question
Come to
is,
us
my
and
question
say-
is that the lapse of those funds,
Yeah.
does that need approval of the full BET?
Let's let the,
We'll take a, I don't think so, but we'll check.
do we go to the full BET with lapsing money?
No.
No.
The department simply says lapse this amount.
So then,
But when it's, but this is not the normal department, this is a revolving fund. When we are lapsing funds in the revolving account, is that handled the same way?
I've never heard any of them.
It's never
lapse
happened before.
appropriation.
Okay, well, what's the precedent we want to set? Are we happy just to leave it as it is?
yeah, I'm happy to
Okay.
deal with it
I only
here.
wanted to deal with the question of whether.
As
it's
much as I'd
routine.
like to make Mr. Mason deal with it.
Okay.
All right. We have no other business, correct?
So I would move we adjourn.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.